Great. Thank you so much, Claire. Hey, everyone. I'm Danielle Christensen at Berkeley Lab, and I'm here representing our team of folks. That is, we're a mix of computer scientists, data scientists, earth, system scientists. And yeah, we're really fortunate to be able to work with the researchers in the Wildland Fire Science Initiative. And I'm here today to show you what we've been doing to help with a data management system and repository for all the rich data that those folks are collecting and working with to improve science, fire science. So, okay, so jump in here if I can. There we go. So, as Claire mentioned, we're part of the Department of Defense Strategic Environmental Research and Development Programs, SERDPs, and also tangentially the Environmental Security Technology Certification Program. Research programs over at the DoD, and we're part of the Wildlands Fire Group. We are project funded by SERDP and the goal of the program is listed here is to promote co-production of management relevant science for fire managers and researchers with a focus on modeling tools for these researchers. So we're part of this these set of projects that have this mission. So when the task that we were set about to solve or at least alleviate some of the challenges there were an unorganized data landscape. So here I've listed a lot of the things that were purportedly happening among researchers. This is probably not uncommon to many of you on the call. You have many data types, many types of ways people are storing them. Somebody knows the contextual information but doesn't write it down or it gets lost. You need to collaborate with people, but you may not know how to get access to data you need or who to talk to. So it's just kind of this landscape of this unorganized landscape. And so our goal was to provide a more organized framework that is collaborative and iterative for wildland fire researchers that where they can iterate and work collaboratively on data sets and then share with other teams privately and or publicly and really get the most out of these data, these rich data that are being collected. So we really are trying to help folks share early with the idea that data sets can be updated and create ways where data can be discovered both within the WFSI community and beyond. So discoverable on multiple platforms, which is really why we're especially excited to be here today because we've made that connection with the Wildfire Commons. So this is what the WFSI data portal looks like. It's a pretty standard portal framework where you go and you get a list of all the data sets. There's a set of filters that you can use and a map where you can search, help navigate yourself. We currently have 88 publicly available data sets, and this is really due to the WFSI research community and their efforts to work with us to help make their data organized and shareable and publishable. And it's really been a great experience. People have really, it's been a collaborative effort, so we can't thank them enough. So some of the types of data that are on the WFSI data portal now are a whole host of fire-related data types that I've listed here, from field observations, mostly prescribed burns, laboratory experience, and models. So we kind of see the gamut of data types that might be produced during in fire research. So I'm going to step through a couple examples here of some of the bigger data collections that are on the portal currently. And I think the big one really here is the data set collections around the WFSI Collaborative Research Burn Campaign. So these are efforts supported by the WFSI program to bring researchers throughout that they funded through different various projects together at a single site. They all have different expertise. Someone's doing fire behavior, someone's looking at smoke, someone's looking at the atmospheric conditions, and then the modelers also are in there trying to figure out, like, if we just collect this, we could do this with our model. So it's this really great opportunities where the researchers come together at typically a military installation and piggyback on some of the great prescribed fire programs that happen at these installations So we have many data sets that are focused, that are being collected by individual researchers at these collective research burns, and they're listed here. It's really, really a neat thing happening. We also have some pretty large project-based data collections. To highlight just a couple here, the three-dimensional fuels project is a project using both terrestrial laser scanning and airborne laser scanning, and creating voxelizations of fuels and characterizing fuels at these very fine scales. So they have 19 data sets on the portal right now. And then there's another pretty big project doing multi-scale study of fire flow vegetation, again, and many different types of data coming together here. Fuels, the meteorology, the fire behavior, all coming together to study the fire effects here. And then we also have a case where we have several independent researchers that are doing unrelated research in the same space. So an example of that is at the Osceola National Forest. We have 6 of those data sets right now. So you can see, like, we're starting, I think we've been accepting data sets for a little, we started, yes, we're approaching, we're at year 3 now. So, we're starting to amass data and starting to get to see the data patterns within the research community. And it's really an exciting time to get to see these data sets come together and then start to learn what people are able to do with them. So the data portal has many key features. I've listed kind of at the bottom there is a icon representation of some of the standard repository features that we offer. And then I wanted to point out a few specific ones here in this list that I'm going to talk about further in the presentation. We think a lot about metadata and how we can organize metadata to both describe the data sets really well and then help users utilize the data down the line. That leads to different ways to filter. As Claire mentioned in the intro, we do allow for private dataset creation and sharing until until you want it to be publicly available. Many people can work on the same data set, so it's a very collaborative process. We offer some large data support, version support, and we mint DOIs for long-term attribution, which is becoming more and more important for journals and publications. So I'm going to talk really in detail about these ones that I've starred here throughout the rest of the talk, and then say at the end, say a little bit about our approach of how we support the research community. So and before I jump into those details, I just want to put out a couple definitions, because I know working across many different types of fields, different words mean different things. So today for the talk, I'm going to be talking about a data set, and what I mean by this is a data package. It's a collection of data and the relevant metadata that stick together at that high-level unit on the data portal. So it's really kind of an open-ended bucket, but it's got data, metadata, maybe some supporting data. And then I mentioned a DOI, that's technically a digital object identifier. It's a unique code that persists, and there's organizations that maintain these identifiers long-term, and we assign those to a data set. In this case, you'll often get a DOI for a paper too if you're in that world. Okay, and then I also just wanted to break out a little bit more you'll be hearing some of these terms throughout when we're talking about data sets. So talk about the data. This is the primary entities being observed or estimated. As I mentioned in the example of data we have, this can be, observations directly observed or simulated. Metadata is all the contextual information that enables those data to be interpreted. And we tend to think about this in a couple of levels, which I'll go into next. And then there's ancillary information. This is supplemental data that's like nice to have and is related and helps with interpretation of the primary data, but maybe wasn't the thing the researchers were really going out there to get for the fundamental research question. Okay, so jumping into the standard metadata for interoperability. So metadata is what makes observations usable. So you can see in this example here, often the piece of data is that number, right? But we need all these other pieces of information to make sense of that number. So Dealing with metadata is challenging because there is all this extra information, and because data in this field are so diverse, how do we can we come up with an organizing principles that can apply to many data types and make sense to a vast number of people? So it's a lot. We do a lot of thinking about metadata. And what we've settled on is thinking about metadata in three levels for data sets that live on the data portal. So the first level of these hierarchical levels is at the data set level. So it's at that like bucket of that high level entity that exists on the data portal. And this is like the who, what, when, where, why, kind of the general information about the data package as a whole. And this is the WFSI dataset metadata that we name it with in all caps there. So this is the information that shows up on the landing page for a dataset. So if you were in that list on the portal and you clicked one of those datasets, this is what you would see. You get this landing page, you see the title, you can see file contents here, but then you get into what we call the dataset metadata. So it's general information, an abstract, some keywords, the people, the little bit about the geographic location, some project information, and often information about the methods. This can be a summary, this can be more detailed. It kind of depends on the data package. And this kind of standardized way of representing this high-level stuff enables discovery and high-level assessment of whether or not a data set will be useful to a researcher. So you can see here the keywords in the data set allow for some pretty great searching capabilities, especially if you can standardize them. So we have done this for our research burns, and we attempt to do that for other characteristics. And capturing the location information allows us to navigate the data sets through geospatial tools like maps. So this is really important to have this kind of high-level structures. And then it also allows us to easily share with other data platforms. So this is the Wildfire Science Technology and Commons, Wildfire Commons community catalog. And as Claire mentioned, we're really happy to be cross-listed on the Wildfire Commons. And you can see here, we've got the WFSI provider selected. And then we can, again, search by those keywords to really get the hone in onto the data sets that we're interested in. So here's, if I were to go ahead with that Fort Stewart 2025, I would get all the entries for that research burn here on the Wildfire Commons catalog. So what's great about the Wildfire Commons, and because we have that structured metadata, it was also pretty easy to get some of those high-level details cross-listed as well or transferred. So if you click the View More button, you can see here's the landing page on the Commons for one of the data sets. Again, you can get that abstract. The list of the files shows up. And then a lot of that additional metadata is also provided here on the Wildfire Commons. And I just noticed there's, if someone has a question or comment in the chat, if someone could help me like pause, because I'm not seeing those with my share screen. So appreciate the help on that if someone wants to speak up. And in this additional metadata info is where you would be able to navigate back to the WFSI data portal if you needed to. So yeah, the last thing I want to say about the standardized metadata is that it's really important for identifying data use rights and attribution. So we support both CC0 and CC BY. These are two types of international data use license. Most people choose the CC BY 4, which is free use as long as the attribution is given. But you can find that on the dataset landing page, always in the same spot, and know very clearly what you can do with datasets that are publicly available. And then it also enables us to provide really good citation information. So for every data set, when it goes public, it has a citation button. You can click it and get the proper citation for the data set to use. And we just feel this is really important because it really matters for the data, the people are producing these data, that their work gets cited so that for their funding and for just because it's their data. So it's great to have these capabilities in place for data users. Okay. The next bit of metadata I want to talk about is where we think of it at the file level. So you saw on those data set landing pages, there's the data set contains data files. And so we like to have information about those files as well. So this is how we approach it. We have a standard, what we call file level metadata file here that the data providers create and then submit as part of their data set. And on the portal, you can actually scroll down to the bottom and you can get to that file level metadata and actually have a look at it. And what it is it's basically a file index. So the idea is that every file in the data set is listed with at least a description. And so that way you can quickly scroll through the data set and find out more information about what the contents are. And we do curate this. We review this with the data providers before the data set's made public. And it's been amazing. We don't actually require this for our data set providers, but every single one of our data sets has one of these files. It's really been an amazing experience to have everyone do this work for data users down the line. So finally, the third level we'd like to think about is the actual data metadata. And so these are the more detailed descriptions of the data themselves. And the way we tackle this is through what we call a data dictionary. And this is in particular for the tabular data. Some data types, NetCDFs, HDF5, a lot of the geospatial data sets, stuff coming off of the Esri tools have metadata embedded. So those are more self-contained and self-described data sets. So this approach here is more for tabular data, which we do see a lot of, to really make sure we have a programmatic way and standard way for people to explain what are in these data files. So we ask folks to have their tabular data using CSVs, and then they create what's called this data dictionary that has, as you can see, a one-to-one match with the column names, and then provide the unit, a definition, and the data type. These can be on a per data file, or you can have a big data dictionary that has everything, which is why you might want to include a file name. So anyway, we do also curate these and make sure these are correct before we publish a data set. So yeah, and again, you can view these in the data portal by going down to the bottom and having a look in the data portal. So that's actually a new update that has come out recently with the upgrading in our software. So that's we anticipated this happening. So it's really nice to see it come through, and hope that it is useful to people looking at these data sets. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the large data support. So we have folks who are generating larger volumes of data, and the listing all the data files is really just not a nice experience directly on the portal. So we offer large data support. It's also not nice to get files off a portal if you have, large amount, big numbers of files or large amounts of data volume-wise. So for our large data support, we offer what we call it tier 2, and the metadata for the data set still lives on the portal with all the who, what, when, where, why, the keywords, all of that. And what it looks like, instead of having all the files live at the top of the data set, we have links out to both Globus and HTTPS access. And so what that looks like if you have Globus, and anyone can get Globus, a lot of organizations provide access, but it's kind of like the new version of FTP if you were back in, using that back in the day. Um, and so it's basically a file, it's like a file manager browser where you can set up large data transfers in the background. And if you lose internet connection, you can restart it. It's secure. It's really, really great. Um, so this is what that looks like. And for these data sets, you're always going to have to look into the contents, and then you get that organization of data that you would have normally seen on the portal directly. And then the HTTPS looks similar, but as you would just like a browser level file manager system here. This is not as nice to download from, I have to say, but it is an option, and it does let you browse the data set without having access to Globus. Yeah, so that's our large data. We do, I think it's about, once the data set reaches 500 files, we typically start thinking about using the tier 2, and I think it's once we get over a terabyte, we start thinking about it as well. So next year, I wanted to mention what we do for version support, because we do feel it's really important for uh, data providers to be able to update their data sets. And we hope, and the idea here is, there's been a paradigm in the not too distant past where, it was kind of like you have to get everything perfect and before you can put your data out there. And while, yes, you want to have good quality data, maybe we shouldn't wait till all the way till the end to start getting your data out there. So we want to try to encourage people to share early, get feedback on their data, and then be able to iterate on their data sets as they find things they want to add that's new, that helps with interpretation, or they correct mistakes that they had. So this has been a feature that we implemented pretty early on. And so, but what's cool, and this is a new feature for us on the portal actually, is that you can actually now see the full version history on the portal. So if you go to the dataset landing page and click this version history button, you actually can see all the different versions of the dataset that were saved. And you can see here in this example, we have DOIs minted at different versions. And this can happen for a number of reasons. But what's great is say you want to say you I think I have this earlier DOI version. If you click on that version, the metadata and the data set at that version still exists. What happens then is we have a banner up here at the top saying, hey, go to see the new one. And also you can flip through the versions one by one so this having an arrow on the right here indicates that you might want to go forward. But if you cite data with a DOI, it'll always, you'll always be able to find the metadata for it. And most times the data. And we actually track the changes of what happened in this document called changes. And this is not available for viewing in the portal at the moment, but most browsers you can open the download button, you can open it in a new tab and actually just read the markdown file. And it's in a very structured way where you can see what happened at each DOI step here. So, okay. And finally, I realize I'm flying through these slides. I just want to say a bit about our approach. So we really feel that this is a collaborative effort. Like we really feel it's important to spend time with researchers, both in the field and on sites, in their workshops, really trying to understand their process. The data collection starts before you get out in the field. So understanding like what metadata, is important for different data types, understanding what happens in the field. So at what key moments, can we ask researchers to remember to collect a key piece of information that's going to be important for those modelers if the person collecting it's not the modeler, if someone else down the line wants to use it. So really trying to understand and help this research flow, understanding how people are sharing data and what that looks like. So we really spend a lot of time both in the field and on site with the research teams and talking to both the providers and the users. It's really hard actually to find the users. It's much harder, I would say, to find the users than the data providers. But we are in contact with users and any feedback. We're always looking for feedback. What's working, what's not, and how can we improve? And then the other thing we have set up is a data governance board, which we have monthly check-ins with them. So these are members of the WFSI community that help us make policy decisions or decisions on which features to develop. So it's been a really great group of folks to help guide us and what we put effort on to get the most for the community. And I mentioned spending time with researchers. We do a lot of one-on-one engagement to just help folks get started. And because this is a lot of work to prepare data to share it. And so we do spend time with folks, getting them going, both virtual and in person. We hold webinars and workshops, and we have a fairly a decent set of online resources. And that's what you're seeing here is in the help button. We have a resource page with guidance for how to submit data sets, how to think about preparing a data set, the different templates for those file level metadata and data dictionary that I showed you earlier. So we do realize, this is not a throw your data over the fence, and this is not us like making data decisions without talking to folks, because those approaches just don't work. So it's really important to have it be a collaborative effort with the research community. We also are take an agile approach, so we try to build pretty lean and then build out features as they're needed or requested. And collaboration is a priority for us. We do not want to reinvent the wheel. So we're, again, super pleased to be able to cross-list the data sets with the Wildfire Commons. We also have a collaboration with NASA FireSense. We're in conversations with USGS and Telemon effort for the terrestrial laser scanning activities. And we've been in conversations with the Forest Surface Frames project. And we're always interested in talking with more folks about how we can share data, share best practices, and make it easier for researchers to both provide and access data.